The United States must understand that Africans are not going to take it anymore. If you don't treat the Africans fairly, United States is going to see itself slowly losing ground to China, to Russia.
How is it understandable that President Biden is inviting 50 African heads of state to the US who will spend almost $50 million each, and he doesn't have 5 minutes to spend with each of them?
Would you believe me if I tell you that the death of Muammar Gaddafi, it had really awakened all Africans, including even some of the world leaders, who did understand that Americans are now a crying baby, all because they seek attention from everyone, because they are the biggest bullies that the world never had. They want things to go according to their own way. Listen. The US have seen Africa as a problem to be solved, but China have seen Africa as a place full of opportunities. This sentence, it is the simple way for you to get to understand the difference between USA, Russia and China when it comes to their advantage in Africa. Now that this is being said, this is what is happening. In this video, we're going to show you some of the things that make Americans to be crying lately like a baby when it comes to Africa. Remember, Africa is like that beautiful woman that every man wants, yet she finds herself dating an abusive man. Tell me, the day she will find a man who will treat her in the way she deserves, what will this woman have to do? I believe you know what is the answer, isn't it? Because you know Africa don't deserve this after all these years. Africa, it is the richest continent in the world because of its natural resource and the mineral that the world needs today. United States always have a strategic interest in Africa, but that strategic it always be in the mineral resource and not in the development of the Africa continent. In today's videos, I'm going to explain you some of the mistakes that USA they've been making, and I'm going to tell you some of the reasons why African countries they are turning to China for a better future. I'll also try to highlight some of the projects that China they have succeeded to do in Africa in the past 10 years and what Americans they have also tried to do in Africa. Then you compare for yourself to get to understand why Africans are turning to China for a better future instead of Europe and America. China they have understood exactly what Africans need in order for us to develop our beautiful continent. Chinese took their time to get to understand what exactly Africans are lacking so far. What is it that African needs, and yet they could not be able to have it, and therefore they end up realizing that Africans need roads, need schools, need job, these infrastructures that will help Africa continent to develop even much more better. And they took their time to provide Africans with all that, building school, roads and different projects for the government. This is the type of project that each and every government will want to have for their people, because every African leaders would love to do good for his people and give a better life to his people. Therefore, they would love to have this kind of partners in order for them to work with them. And the Republic of China, they are giving that to Africans. Now, instead of making the same effort as we get to see with China, the USA is trying to mislead African leaders by showing them how dangerous it is to work with China. And they are doing all this in order for them to neutralize how powerful the Chinese trade currency had took place in Africa. So they are kind of like saying that working with China, it is a bad idea. Instead, you should work with only USA. This strategy is not respectful to African nations. What the US is doing here is to assume that African leaders they are not good and capable to make their own decisions. Here's what Macky Sall stated: when we talk, we are often not listened to, or in any case, not with enough interest. This is what we want to change, and let no one tell us no. Don't work with so and so. Just work with us. We want to work and trade with everyone.
Here are indeed friends at heart, friends to be depended on in the transformation and journey for us to develop our country.
Speaking about the modernization process, he said,
most of us on the African continent, in our development, you can recognize the impact of cooperation with China.
At the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit in Beijing, he declared,
"It's an occasion which we all cherish when we come together as heads of state."
20 years ago, the US dominated trade in Africa, while China had almost 0% in Africa continent. All this time, China did not try to see on how to fight the USA in Africa. Instead, China, they sat down to come up with a better plan which will benefit them to bring market in Africa. They came with their own market ideas in Africa in order for them to settle, and this is working in their advantage as we're talking at the moment. In 2022 only, China trade with Africa reached up to 261 billion US dollar. This is an amount which is nearly 5 times than USA trade in Africa last year. But to make this even sound more interesting is when the statistics that shows the achievement of China in Africa when they released this, which shows that 77% of African youth believe that China is the most important partner for their future and not the USA and Europe. But how did America lose its leadership in Africa? It comes down to one simple mistake. The USA government often disrespects small developed countries in Africa. Okay, let me explain. When the United States wants to treat with Africa, it treats Africa as one place and fails to address each and African country as independent and sovereign countries.
How is it understandable that President Biden is inviting 50 African heads of state to the US who will spend almost $50 million each, and he doesn't have 5 minutes to spend with each of them?
On the other side, when China deal with Africa, it deal with each and every country as individual. It gives respect to all these African countries and give a chance to speak and give their point of view as well. They want to be heard, and China does so by listening to them.
Debate on some Western media saying that, what do you call it, the debt trap, or China threatening policy of Africa's sovereignty. But China has always adopted the policy of non-interference with other countries' domestic policies. What's your opinion on this? I mean,
people, they perceive things different. But speaking with President Xi Jinping, I didn't get any of that sense. I got a sense of a man, a leader of a country that's well-developed, talking to you honestly and seeking to reach an understanding where they seek your views, and you feel like this is something that is desired amongst nations. Someone who would even assure you of being able to stand up for you and other developing nations at multilateral levels of the world. And so sometimes decisions and or comments are made, maybe not necessarily from a position where there's been interaction, but an observation from a distance. When you actually sit down and talk about some of these things, you find that the contrary is true. You can pursue to achieve your goals. And it doesn't have to be one school of thought against another school of thought. It doesn't have to be either this or that. It has to be both and. And when nations are able to discover the best way they can move forward and develop, I think it is best to encourage the same so that they are able then to own the developmental trajectory that they want to pursue, and help them by giving them a hand up so that they are able then to run by themselves. And I think this is one reason I appreciate our relationship with China, because it is one that helps us in our own setting and say, how can we best help you achieve your vision?
The lack of respect that exists in the US policy, it is a major concern when it comes to African continent. Have listened to what this diplomat from Zimbabwe had to say.
What really is behind the failure of effective engagement with Africa is the disrespect of the Africans. That's where the problem begins. It's always the United States setting the agenda, the United States setting the policies, and the United States telling the Africans about the policies. That is no way to have any meaningful engagement.
Last December, Joe Biden hosted 49 African leaders in Washington, D.C. And this meeting was called as US-Africa Leaders Summit. Once again, the purpose of this meeting was to convince African leaders that the USA is a better trade in Africa than China. So they're kind of like trying to make China look bad in front of African leaders and put themselves as the right people that African leaders should deal with. Once again, we get to notice another mistake here that Americans are doing. Instead of focusing on your own business and genuinely trying to help the people of Africa, the entire goal of that summit was for them to convince African leaders that, look, China is not a good partner but us. Forget about China because China is bad. And this automatically make African leaders to lose even more confidence in the USA. They will be like, okay, wait a minute. Why do you have to call us here just for you to tell us all this?
And the United States is committed to supporting every aspect of Africa's inclusive growth and creating the best possible environment for sustained commercial engagement between Africa companies and American companies.
America promises a partnership with Africa.
Once again, you get to see that you are dealing with someone who have to impose their leadership on you. Whether you like it or not, the USA have to set the agenda, the policy, and call African leaders to come and impose it to them. And they are doing all this without giving a chance to African leaders, without even trying to get to listen to what they have to say. They don't care about their concerns. Instead, they try to impose what they think is better for them.
There was a lot of criticism of the last summit like this under President Obama, that there was like no follow through. And what I'm hearing from you is frankly a lot of disappointment and a lot of pessimism about what may come out of this summit.
Nothing is going to come out of it because it is a one-sided conversation. So the fact that it is a one-sided conversation, that is yet going to be another useless meeting with no outcomes. The reason this is happening is because there is a disrespect for the Africans. There is a general feeling that we don't need to hear from the Africans. Their opinions do not matter. President Biden would not pick up and go to meet with any other leader in the world without an agenda. That simply doesn't happen.
Right.
So what makes the US think that they can engage African leaders without an agenda?
Guys, this US-Africa summit, it was a waste of time, and I'm even surprised to get to see how African leaders have to go and respond to that kind of invitation. Remember, this is not the first time this summit is taking place. In 2014, USA former President Barack Obama did the same thing by inviting African leaders, and after all these years, they're still not learning from their mistakes. Here, they're still repeating the same mistake that they did 10 years ago.
The United States must understand that Africans are not going to take it anymore. If you don't treat the Africans fairly, the United States is going to see itself slowly losing ground to China, to Russia, to all other nations, because without respecting the Africans, without treating the Africans as equal, without understanding that exploitation and abuse of Africa simply cannot continue.
For me, the most important thing is to readjust the point of view. The way of approaching cooperation, partnerships, no longer consider ourselves as subhumans, but look at ourselves as real partners with whom we can do positive, constructive business, and not always as transitioning from one form of dominance to another.
But Mr. President?
If it is reconsidered, I think it can change things.
How do you interpret that non-democratic regimes like China or Russia manage to make progress in Africa?
But because they don't come with this approach, they don't come with this arrogance, this method of offering unsolicited advice, which can be quite frustrating.
To suggest that the Chinese or Russians are currently behaving better than Westerners is contentious, but...
Of course, we don't understand African realities very well, and that's really a shame, because I have always said that Europe, for example, is Africa's best partner by its history and also by its geographical position. We are of continents which are very close, but it's amazing to see how far we are in relation to cultures.
But how? Excuse me?
We cannot understand people coming to lecture us, for example, on human rights.
Like it or not, these people, they have not changed their way of treating Africans. They still have to treat Africa in a very bad manner because they don't care about Africans. Now that you have understood some of the reasons why China have to take over the USA in Africa market, let us now focus on some of the projects that China, they've succeeded in Africa so far. And please keep in mind that so far there is no country in Africa that China have not get to deal with. There are so many, but in this video we only prepared 10 countries which we would like to share with you on our list. Let us start with number 10, which is Nigeria. We're starting with this country because China, they have managed to build a lot of projects in this country. But this time up, I have to line Abuja Rail Mass Transit. Chinese company did finance the Abuja Rail Mass Transit, and they did fix a 1,315 kilometers railroad, which was very important for people of Abuja, that get to facilitate them to move from one side of the country to another side of the country. All the small business to be able to move with merchandise from one corner of the country to another side of the country. This project, it has continued with 2 lines, yellow and blue lines, and it is also expected to be having more lines that will link people of Abuja to more cities. China, it is known for its high speed of metros around the world, which them to be the perfect candidate for Nigeria roadway partners. Moving on, we have Algeria, number 9 on our list. According to the report, 4 Algerians and China, they have signed a deal of nearly 700 billion US dollar. This deal is signed in behalf of Forest Mining, which associate the two countries, Algeria and China. Please keep in mind that this project will get Algeria to have 56% of the benefits and 44% will go to China. The project will create 12,000 construction jobs, 60,000 direct jobs, and 24,000 indirect jobs. This project is not only giving job to Algerians, but it is also helping local community to develop in Algeria. In his interview, the president of Algeria, President Tebboune, praised his friendship with China, says that China is a true friend of ours. This shows how happy the two countries are excited to work together. Number 8 on our list is the famous Go City. Well, I'm talking about the city which is built inside Angola. We're talking about Colombo New City, which was built inside Angola. And this project was built by China, who had put their own money there, and later on they were repaid by Angolan government in exchange of petrol. Colombo New City, which was built inside Angola from scratch. They had to put everything together. They build the school, they build all this building, and they make sure that the conditions of living over there, it have to be in a very good condition that will allow every citizen of Angola to enjoy their moment. And this project, it was built with Chinese money, which they spent on their own, and later on they were repaid in exchange of petrol by the Angolan government. Isn't it that very interesting? Whereby you get to see someone come and invest and later on get paid after they are done with their work. Moving down, we have a Buoy Dam in Ghana as a number 7 on our list. Buoy Dam, it was built with the capacity of 400 megawatt, which made it become the second one after Akasambo in Ghana. Its construction started in 2009 and it was finished in 2013 with funding from Chinese government. So guys, this project is a little bit older, but the truth here is that it was built by Chinese, of course, in exchange of something. Just because the Chinese, they managed to do their part when it comes to build of this power station in Ghana, it had really motivated the government of Ghana to even sign more contract, or should I say more deal with them, that allowed them also to get develop some part of Ghana country. It has really indeed helped Ghana government to get develop their country with different projects under their partnership with China, and they did manage to sign a lot of projects out of this one that you get to see. When the president of Ghana was asked a question to know what is his certifications about what China have been doing in this country, here's what he said.
Across a broad range of sectors of our economy, there are many examples that are of benefit to us from China, and on top of it, Chinese companies are proving to be very successful in their contribution to the development of our economy. So I'm very hopeful that the relationship between Ghana and China is going to grow stronger and stronger in the years ahead.
Next up on our list is a cement manufacturer in Tanzania. The Tanzania government signed for a cement company which was worth of $1 billion US, including one power stations on the east side of Congo. This power station was to help the Tanzania cement company to be able to produce enough cement at a due time. Instead, it was there to provide even more cement that will help all the neighboring countries in Africa. If you're still watching this video until now, it's because you find something very beneficial for you, something very important that you deserve to know. Do us a favor in return by typing that like button, give us your thumbs up. We really do appreciate, because it helps us also to reach a big audience out there who deserve to hear this beautiful message about what is happening in Africa. So let us jump back to this number 5, and this time we're talking about an economical zone. This zone I'm talking about here, it is the one of Republic of Congo, a place where Chinese government, they have come and invest a couple of money there to build such things as a road, a stadiums, power stations, and many more manufacturers around, in exchange of their petrol and their trees and different minerals that they are having over there. And they've been doing this for some times now, and their relationship have become even more stronger because they have signed a deal of win-win. Talking about Congo, this brings to my mind of DR Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo. They are the only country so far that the Chinese, they did not respect their promises according to what they had signed to develop some places of the Congolese. They promised to build the roads, the school, and this deal was made in exchange of them taking DRC mineral. But after this so long, when you get to look, they did not do much enough as they promised. So hopefully that they will try to fix that in the near future. Let us jump to number 4, the Mombasa-Nairobi Railway. This railway, it was the first one which was built in Kenya since their independence. Guess who built it? Of course, no one else than Chinese. So this railway, it was built to help connect Mombasa to another city around Kenya. Also, to get Kenya being connected to the eastern of Africa countries. After 2.5 years of constructions, this railway, it had finally got finished, and it really started helping people of Kenya from traveling around the country and make even the transport become more cheaper, because everyone had a chance to travel with this railway. When this railway was open, President Uhuru Kenyatta was the first one to step in, and he could not hold it but to thank Chinese, because he says that this railway, it is the pride of Kenyan people. He went on to say that we thank China for helping us build the SGR and write a new page in China's history. Isn't it, this is a beautiful word you can say to your partner, because come to think of it, we all know that Kenya was not colonized by China. Kenya, they had their people who had colonized them, and we all know them, and they could not be able to leave even a single railway in Kenya. Just in case if you did not know, Egypt is moving its capital city from Cairo to its brand new city which is under construction. That brings us to our number 3 on the list. We all know that Egypt, since the time of their forefathers, they never built a new city, and this is the first time in the history of Egypt. I'm referring to the Egypt, the one outside of the Bible. They decided to build a new city from scratch, and they went on the desert to build this city. But they needed some engineering. They needed some people who have that mind of hard working in order for them to bring something that can be considered as the latest model in the world. And this time they went again for Chinese. China government, they really did it again in Egypt. They had to bring their engineers to come and build different towers, and this is the longest towers that they had to build over there. This tower, it will be a eye catch for every tourist that will have to visit this new city. The president of Egypt said it in his meeting with the president of China, said that Egypt will continue to work hard in better cooperation with the Republic of China. Egypt will continue to work with China to advance Belt and Road cooperation. Egypt welcomed China his active participation in important infrastructure projects in Egypt. Its doors are wide open to Chinese companies hoping to invest and seek cooperating in Egypt. These are beautiful words that are supposed to be said to such country as a NATO country, USA, Europe country, yet Egypt, they prefer to sell it to China. Do you know why? Because they can get to see that things are happening with China. Coming in on number 2, the new parliament building in Zimbabwe. Chinese, they decided to build a parliament in Zimbabwe after seeing Zimbabwe, what they've been going through. They've been the victim of the fraudulent sanctions that the USA had imposed on Zimbabweans. Yet, when they were doing this, there were many countries around Africa who tried to fight up today, still asking if Zimbabwe can be released from these sanctions that they have imposed against them. But NATO countries, of course USA, they did not want to let Zimbabwe to be free. At the same time, Chinese, as clever as they are, they were busy thinking on how to strengthen up their relationship with China, how they can get to have China on their side. And they built this parliament as a gift to the Zimbabwean people. So they built this parliament, which cost them about 200 million US dollar as a gift to the Zimbabwean people. So according to the report, since 2003, Zimbabwe has looked to China and also Russia for friendship and assistance after falling out with Western countries that impose sanctions following allegations of human rights abuse and voting paper trades by then President Robert Mugabe, who lost power in 2017 and died in 2019. We all know how USA get to punish countries around the world. We all know how USA with its alliance, they get to involve themselves in matters that does not even concern them. And the time when they decide to impose these sanctions against Zimbabwe is because they knew that Zimbabwe was not going to survive. But lucky enough, back then in 2003, with the President Robert Mugabe, who decided to turn also his back against the Western and seek for help to Russia and China, and they did not let him go. Instead, they helped Zimbabwe. They've been helping Zimbabwe up to date. As I always tell you time to time, for those who always watch us, you will understand that the more Zimbabwean they get to enjoy these injustice sanctions against them, the better for them, because they've become even more stronger and they've become even more independent. I don't think that if you have to put China and America today, if people of Zimbabwe will be able to choose America after all these things that they've been seeing. So China, they did not abandon them. Instead, they make sure that they are there for them, and they even give them a precious gift. This new parliament, it is more useful to the government of Zimbabwe because it have the capacity of 400 seats and 270 house members. You made it this far because you find something beneficial and interesting about this video. Please do subscribe to the channel, we will really do appreciate. Coming up on number 1, African Union building. Yes, we're talking about African Union building, which was built also by China, which has raised a lot of rumors around the world, especially from the Western, who get to say that the China government, they have built this African Union so that they'll be able to spy on African countries. And this was said by the Western. Do you buy that? Of course, we all know the master who's behind all this. With 200 million US dollar donated by China to build this African Union building, its design was the resemblance of China and Africa culture. This building was built by over 2,000 workers, that was including 1,000 of Ethiopians and 500 of Chinese, 500 of other African countries who had to come also and contribute in this construction of this beautiful building. This building was inaugurated on January 28, 2012, and this was symbolized as the new relationship that China is trying to build with Africa. Again, here you get to see for yourself that China was not the one who did colonize African countries. This is something that people who had colonized African countries, this is something that they're supposed to do, but they never do it before, and they are not even willing to do so. Do you know why? Because they know very well that this is something that will make Africa to be united, and once Africa get to be united, that will be their downfall. Please keep in mind that on this list we did not mention all the African countries. There is many countries that China is dealing with, and they are doing a very wonderful work. But in this video we had prepared on for you these 10 countries on our list, so that we can get to make you understand exactly why African countries, they are turning their backs on Europe and the US toward China, because Chinese, they get to show Africans that they can really do what they call win-win. You benefit and them also they get to benefit. That is the reason why you get to see US and the IT alliance on NATO, they are fighting China daily. See what happened recently in G7. G7, which is representative of NATO countries, they decided to bring an open war against China economy. They are trying by all means to make sure that China get to fail, because they see that so far China and Russia, they are together and they are winning all the African countries and other many Asia countries. When this summit was taking place, here's what President Biden had to say.
We're also united in our approach to the People's Republic of China. In the joint statement released yesterday, outlines the shared principles we've all agreed at the G7 and beyond dealing with China.
Listening to his words, you can tell that this is someone who's looking for something, any wrongdoing that can get to punish China, as they're doing with Russia so far by imposing their sanctions on Russia. So they are trying to do the same thing with China, but they don't have any opportunity or any chance to do so. That is the reason why now they're doing it more open without hiding it. But what do you need to take from all this? What do you, as the African child, have to benefit from all this? Well, as I always tell you time to time, that Africans, we are on our own. As long we don't stand on our feet and try to do what is good for ourselves, we'll keep and remaining slave for these people over and over, especially the USA, because these people, they are careless. They don't care about Africans. So I'm so proud and I'm so happy to be African at the moment, because I can see our generation, this youth, we get to open our eyes, we get to understand what is happening, and we now get to punish these Americans by start supporting countries that we know it will benefit our future. Therefore, we don't need to give up. We need to remain focused and try to do what is good. If there is any sell-out African leader who will try to betray us, then you as African youth, you need to stand against such kind of leader. It is in that way that we'll get to change things around. Well guys, now that you get to understand the difference between US and China when it comes to trade with Africa, you have now the choice. You know what to do and you know who to trade with. So don't make mistake to trade with a wrong partner when you become the president of your country, because I know some days you'll become someone in your country. Therefore, you need to make the right choice and trade only with people you know that it will benefit your beautiful country, isn't it? Say amen if you believe so. Well guys, thank you so much. It was very important that we get to share this important message with you, to first explain you some of the mistakes that USA they have done so far when it comes to trade with Africa, and to give you some of the reasons why African countries are turning against USA and want to deal only with China. I believe you might also have a lot of reasons which you can also add to what we have just discussed in this video. Thank you so much. If this is your first time to watch our videos, please don't leave without you giving us first your thumbs up, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel, follow us in our social medias. We will really do appreciate that. For now, continue to be yourself, be good, be kind, have respect for everyone in order for you to be respected. May God bless you all. I'll see you again very soon in our next video. Ciao, ciao.
better